Chris Lee and Blayne Gilmer of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We are previewing every single SEC football game for Week 11 and also the 2022 season. Today, Blayne, we get to yet another anticipated matchup involving the Alabama Crimson Tide, although maybe not quite as anticipated as we would have said a week ago before Alabama went to LSU and was knocked off in overtime by the Tigers. Alabama, man, you talk about some tough road games. At Texas, at LSU, now at Ole Miss, been to Tennessee. Say what you want about the Tide. You cannot say this team hasn't been tested.
No, and it just kind of shows how much of a victim of their own success that Alabama is. The fact that they've lost 2 games by a combined total of, I think, four points, and the end of the world is coming because of this, right? That shows the standard of excellence that Nick Saban and company have set here. And listen, that still a team that now that has to either prove some people right or disprove the narrative that, okay, now Alabama's out of the playoff picture. Are they going to fight? Are they going to play hard? Things like that. Is Saban's window closing? All of these narratives out there. And then here you got, get your popcorn ready part 2 as Lane Kiffin gets to go up against his former mentor, redeemer of his career, if you will, Nick Saban. So I'm excited to see how this one turns out over there in Oxford this week.
We will break down both sides of the ball and some miscellaneous stuff. Let's start with Alabama when it has the ball. Bama averaging 41.8 points a game. Ole Miss giving up 21.6. Alabama has thrown 6 picks, which is exactly how many interceptions the Rebels have. Alabama's lost 6 fumbles. The Rebels have recovered 7. And rush plays, these and pass plays, we will adjust for sacks. In other words, we will take a sack out of the rushing yardage and make that a pass play yardage play. Alabama is averaging 6.5 yards a rush play. Ole Miss giving up 4.8. Alabama 7.2 per pass play. The Rebels giving up 5.7. Alabama, look, it's not been the traditional Tide running game in the sense that, they don't have a Derrick Henry or someone like that, Mark Ingram, but they got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's been very good. And Ole Miss has had trouble stopping the run.
Yeah, for sure. Ole Miss does struggle to stop the run, but I think this Alabama team, it's all about that line of scrimmage, right? And there's been problems there at the line of scrimmage. That's why at times, you saw them rush for a total of 29 yards as a team against Mississippi State a couple of weeks ago. And then, overall 137 yards against LSU in that overtime loss this past weekend. But I tell you what, it just seems like it isn't there, as you mentioned, as often as it needs to be for Alabama. So I'm looking forward to see which trend gets bucked here. Does Alabama find more consistency and get some more explosiveness in their running game like they did back in that Arkansas game? Or does Ole Miss, are they able to kind of stiffen things and make sure that they're gap sound and things of that nature, which has been a struggle during Lane Kiffin's tenure there. Chris, for as much great stuff as Lane's done on the offensive side of the ball, there has been struggles at times for the Ole Miss defensive front especially.
Well, and some of those numbers are very heavily skewed by the Rebels' first 3-4 games. I mean, the Georgia Techs of the world, actually when Tech wasn't playing very well, it's gotten better since the coaching change. But point is, like, you start taking out a lot of those early games, which, I mean, you can do this for any team, right? But point is, the Rebel defense has been a lot leakier of late.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Auburn, they gave up 301 rushing yards. LSU 252 rushing yards. Texas A&M, who is by far is far from a offensive juggernaut, as we know, with the stuff going on over there. Texas A&M, they give up 142, and all of those at least 4.9 yards per carry or greater. So that's going to be the matchup I think everybody's looking for, is how does Alabama's run game are they able to exploit the problems that Mississippi has had up front, and conversely, does Lane Kiffin use more blitzing stuff like that? But then your danger is you've got Bryce Young back there, who, if you do try to put some pressure and things like that, he can change a play at the line of scrimmage, try to hit a receiver tight end in behind you. He's very good at eluding pressure as well. So you're really in a catch-22. This feels like it could be a game where you just say, Chris, take the over and be done
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. Before we talk about the matchup on the other side of the ball, shout out to our presenting sponsor, Stakes. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, fans can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com, and that's STAKES, playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Guys, you can play for free. You can join for free. You can win stuff. What's not to like? Have some fun and support the people who help us the most. Okay. When Ole Miss has got the ball, that is a very, very balanced attack. Jackson Dart, obviously a very talented quarterback, but Ole Miss has got 3 or 4 guys who can really run. Alabama giving up 18.3 points a game. Ole Miss scoring 37.4. The Alabama has picked off only 3 passes. That's crazy to look at. Ole Miss has thrown 8. Now here could be a problem, or there is actually not a problem. It's interesting. Alabama 29 sacks. The Rebels have only given up 7. And yards per rush play, Alabama allowing 3.9, Ole Miss getting 5.8, again, adjusted for sacks. Yards per pass play, Alabama only giving it 4.8, and the Rebels averaging 8.1. Yeah, fascinating matchup here, especially the pass protection stuff. Jackson Dart, a very mobile guy, which also helps too, but very intrigued to see how the Rebels match up against Alabama here.
I think, your point about Jackson Dart and being able to, they've only give up 7 sacks on the year. Well, that's because he can move, right? And he can get out of there. Same with Alabama. Their offensive line play has been poor at times, but Bryce Young makes it all go away because he's the magician, right? Like, he can go in there and erase mistakes. Jackson Dart has some of that in him as well. I'm excited to see if Alabama – Alabama, it used to be a deal where they were all about stopping the run and things like that. Well, a mobile quarterback in Jaden Daniels took care of business this past weekend against them as well. Had 95 yards rushing. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Lane Kiffin, have it in the game plan to make sure to utilize Jackson Dart's legs early. We know historically the narrative is back from the time when Johnny Manziel and the people like that beat the Saban team, right? That you have to have a mobile quarterback to beat this Saban coach defense. Well, Ole Miss certainly has that in Jackson Dart, but as you said, it's not just him. Quinshad
Judkins is so good.
Zach Evans is outstanding as well. Even Ulysses Bentley is not a bad running back in his own right. They have plenty of weapons over there when it comes to being able to run the football, and that's such a misnomer. I think people think Lane Kiffin, they think of throwing it all over the yard, but he's certainly
runs it a lot.
Yeah, he's a run first guy this year, and I think that they're going to relish that challenge of being able to go against a defensive front for Alabama that came into the year, everybody thinking it was the greatest defensive front in college football. It's shown some warts along the way, and probably no greater than giving up, efficient rushing yards to LSU when they needed it most in this game, especially in overtime there. Jaden Daniels breaking that 25-yard touchdown run on the first play of overtime. So I think that Lane Kiffin and company, especially off of bye week, Chris, that's an element of this that we haven't talked about. Lane's had 2 weeks to prepare for Saban, a guy he knows pretty well. So that's going to be interesting also.
Well, I think there's a lot of other things to talk about here other than just how the teams match up. That's one thing. The what does Alabama have to play for kind of thing when you play for national championships every year, a trip to a New Year's Day bowl or something. What does that mean? I don't know.
I saw somebody
I'm
tweet out.
looking.
Saw
Go
somebody
ahead.
tweet out Jalen Milroe and Williams, the backup running back. They're going to have a great Citrus Bowl. Like somebody said that Alabama's already going to be having players opt out and things like that. So to your point, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of play together going forward.
Well, I like the playoff predictor at 538. I mean, the predictions could be off, but it's what we have because you can run all sorts of scenarios. According to this, if Alabama wins out, it's got a 7% chance to make the college football playoff. Ole Miss, on the other hand, if the Rebels went out, 33% chance. I don't know that anybody's talking about Ole Miss as a college football playoff team, but in fact, let me see if Ole Miss wins this one. That alone makes it go from 4% to 13%. The Rebels would still have a lot of other work to do. But right now, Ole Miss seems to have a lot more to play for than does Alabama. There's also this. Alabama, I think, is the most penalized team in the league. 75 yards a game, I think, was charged with 92 yards in penalties. If I remember correctly, in Baton Rouge last Saturday, Ole Miss, not great at avoiding penalties itself, 62. But where Alabama's really had trouble with penalties, Blayne, is on the road. These loud atmospheres where they can't get plays off or whatever. You have the 17 penalty day in Knoxville. Look, I know that it is not going to be the crowd sizes that the Crimson Tide saw at Texas, at Tennessee, at LSU. Not that Ole Miss fans will not pack the stadium and be loud, but just the sheer number of people there, it's different. Maybe you can play devil's advocate and say Alabama will be plenty prepared for it after going through that. But the truth is, Blayne, penalties have been a problem for this team all year. And particularly that has shown up in big ways on the road. And I don't think you can completely look past that along with the motivation stuff.
Oh, I agree. I think that it's interesting because when you look at it, Alabama's out of the SEC West picture, right? They have two losses now, and they're not in that race. But when it comes down to, they have two SEC losses. But when it comes down to it, Ole Miss, if they win this game, they'll still only have one. And what happens if LSU stubs their toe? All of a sudden you find Ole Miss having an opportunity to play the last couple of weeks of the season against Arkansas and Mississippi State for the right to go to the SEC championship. So,
Yeah.
you wouldn't it is not out of the realm of possibility that they end up in Atlanta. So you're right, they have a lot to play for. I think they'll be the more motivated team when you just look at it from that aspect. But you never know. I mean, Alabama's got a bunch of competitors as well. There's a reason we learned with line spreads last week in the Georgia Tennessee game. Vegas kind of knows what they're doing a little bit. There's a reason we say all the time, Chris, that we're not professional bettors, right? but
Yeah.
but they have. I believe what's the line? 10.5 is what is in this game that we saw.
Yeah. What I'm seeing right now, we're doing this on Sunday night, a line of 10.5 in Bama's favor, an over under of 63.5. That implies a final score of 37-27, roughly, in Alabama's favor. Just for kicks, if you take what the teams have averaged, the over under should be 59.5. And if you take what the teams have averaged, the score should be 32-28 in Alabama's favor. So some things that suggest the under. I don't think I believe that, especially the way both defenses have played or sometimes not played of late. And also, to me, honestly, Ole Miss could win this game, right? Which would be included as a possibility in the Rebels covering. Of course, that's I just feel like 11 points is a lot, but I also felt that last week in Georgia, Tennessee, and sometimes when you are that off, you start to wonder, what am I missing here? I just, to me though, My thinking is the over and Ole Miss with the points, but probably Bama to win.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about that as well, Chris. You look at we turn to our friends at Covers here. They have some terrific trends that we like to throw out there. And Crimson Tide is 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games following a straight up loss. So that suggests. But a lot of times Alabama only loses 1 game in a year, so there's still stuff to play for. So that can be a little bit deceiving. Also, when it comes down to it, the Crimson Tide are 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games after accumulating more than 450 total yards in the previous game. Well, they did that against LSU. They had 465 total yards. So, it suggests that the trends are still in the favor of Alabama in this contest. But I'm with you. I think right now I would take probably Alabama to win the game just because I think overall they're the more talented team, and I have to feel like there's more pride in that program just to fold it in after it goes down. I think you would give that benefit of the doubt to Nick Saban, but I definitely think Ole Miss covers this game, and I wouldn't be shocked if they won outright because they do have more to play for, but hard to count out anybody that's got Bryce Young on their side, and he made some terrific plays. I don't know that Ole Miss's defensive front will be able to get after Bryce Young the same way that LSU did. So for that reason, I think Alabama wins the game, but it's a close one. It's not by much.
Yeah, one other parting note here. You mentioned the Alabama off a loss. Last time that happened, and Alabama had a next game, of course, was when it lost to Tennessee. Bama came home, beat Mississippi State. What was it? Roughly 30 points until the final play of the game.
Like that.
Yeah. And that was also in Tuscaloosa. This will be different. And Alabama, for whatever reason, that matchup with State has just been a nightmare for State that transcends what it should have been. But there, if you're looking for the last time this happened, there was that. But that was also Tuscaloosa. This one is in Oxford.
Also, two trends against Alabama here. Alabama's 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 road games, and they're also 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 road games versus a team with a winning record. So this might tell you that, hey, Alabama may win this game, but look for Ole Miss to cover.
So we're both feeling Bama to win, Ole Miss to cover, and take the over.
Yep, that's what I think.
All right. Well, we are previewing every single SEC game of the football season and of this week 11. Best way to get all those, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Steaks. We'll be back soon with another preview video of SEC action for week 11.